Shalom, and welcome back to Hebrew Grammar Help. In this video, I teach how to write the letters Aleph through Tet in block letters and in cursive. Shalom, shalom! This is video 1 of a 3-part series teaching how to write the letters in block and in cursive. I had to split them into 3 because it was just too long as one video. In these 3 videos, I assume that you already know the names of the letters, what they look like in print, and how they sound. So if you don't know all of that, you can go back to last week's video, or hopefully you have learned it somewhere. In this video, I'll be teaching how to write the letters in block and in cursive. If you are an adult learning modern Hebrew, I don't think you should even bother with the block letters. Only children write in block letters. So let's get to it. So in this setup, we can see that we've got our 2 letters that we learned last week, or if you've learned them somewhere else. The 2 different printed forms of the letter in 2 different fonts in these little white squares on the top left. And then you can see where I wrote cursive and block, and these 2 lines down below, they represent the lines on a page. So that's where our space is for writing the letters. And when you're learning how to write, I definitely recommend at first using double spacing, because otherwise it can get pretty crowded. Okay, so here we're going to start with our block Aleph. And so even though when we are writing, we always write from right to left, sometimes within a letter, we need to start at the left. And that's the case here with Aleph. You're going to start at the top left corner, and you're going to draw a diagonal line straight down to the bottom right corner. Remember, Aleph has an arm and a leg, and so you are going to draw the arm and then the leg. Remember, your diagonal line should be pretty straight, and your arm and your leg can also be straight, but they can also be a little bit curved if you want. Okay, so here's something you don't want. You don't want your arm and your leg to touch the diagonal line so close together that it almost looks like an X. And then here's another way you don't want to do this. So you want that arm to actually touch the diagonal line below where the leg touches it. Okay, and here is the cursive Aleph. You first draw a C, and it's the entire height between the 2 lines. And then you draw a straight vertical line down. And that straight vertical line can start right at the top, or usually when I see it, it starts a little bit above the top line. But it doesn't matter. All right, so that is Aleph, and we are moving on to the next one. Do you remember? It is Bet. So when we write the block Bet, we start at the top left corner, we go across to the right side, and then straight down. Remember, Bet has that little tag on the bottom right corner. So what you want to do is you want to move your pen over a little bit. You pick up your pen, you move it over a little bit to the right, and then you start a line that goes across the bottom line over to the left corner. Okay, cursive Bet. It's a little bit difficult to write. You start in the top left corner, and then you curve up and around the top and the right side. And when you get in the vicinity of the bottom right corner, you can actually touch the line down there, or you do not have to. I've seen it both ways. And then what you need to do is you start coming back over towards the left, but you need to give it a little bump, right? So as you're coming left, you need to go up a little and then back down. And you end on the line. That little bump is really important because it distinguishes the bet from a cough. And so if you don't write the bump, if you just write it more smooth, it's going to look like a cuff, and that's no good. And then also it's very important to stop at that bottom line, because if you go further down, it can look like a chaf sofit. So you don't want that. Now, I have also seen it looking a little bit like this, like a number 2, right? I don't try to copy what I have written here because it's not right. But if you see something like this, know that that's what it is. It's a bet. And I do see many, many Israelis write it this way. I think this is the more common way to write it. But I didn't learn it that way. None of the books actually teach it this way. I just wanted to put it in here so that if you see this written, you know what letter it is. Okay, Gimel. So to make a Gimel, we start kind of at the top left, but remember Gimel is a little bit of a narrow letter, so you're not going to need as much space. The top left corner of a Gimel is not going to be as far away as it would be if it were a Bet or Resh or something like that. So you're going to start a little bit to the left and then come a little bit over to the right, not a huge amount, and then a straight down line. And then you pick your pen up, you put it in the middle of that vertical line, and then you draw a diagonal line down and to the left. Now, I've also seen it written this way, and I kind of think it looks better this way, where your angles aren't quite so harsh, and the vertical, quote unquote, vertical line is not really vertical. It's kind of more of a diagonal type. I do think it looks better. Cursive Gimel. What? How did this even happen? It looks absolutely nothing like a regular Gimel. So you start at the top of your letters space in the middle. And what you're going to do is you're going to write a short little diagonal line down and towards the right, but it's going to be a very short line. And then you're gonna, from there, not pick up your pen, you're just gonna write a C using the rest of the space that you can. So it's kind of like a stylized C with like a little crown or something on the top there. And Zayin is gonna be a mirror image of this. And the way I remember the difference is that this one goes, the curve and the open area are in the same place as with a capital G. So you can see this looks nothing like the printed form, and I don't know why, but that's the cursive Gimel. Okay, Dalet. Dalet is a very easy letter to make. You draw a horizontal line at the top. Pick up your pen and draw a totally separate stroke near the top right corner, but not quite. So it's just gonna be vertical stroke going straight down. So you've got 2 separate lines here, and it looks a little bit like a T, except that the vertical line in a T would be right in the middle, right? Whereas here it's way over at the right. It's not 100% at the right because you need that little tag. Remember, that tag is the only thing that distinguishes a dalet from a resh. And also remember to stop at the bottom line. If you go further down accidentally, it might look like a chaf sofit, so you don't want to do that. Okay, I gotta say that dalet is my favorite cursive letter to write, or at least one of them. It's like a little curly Q. It is so cute. So you start at the top left, and you come around almost like you're writing a 2. Think about how a fancy 2 with a loop in the middle. So we're going to come around a clockwise arch, but in the middle, it's going to have a little loop, and then boom, it stands on its leg. It is very important for it to be standing on its leg and not don't let that leg curl under and look a little bit like a 3, because there's another letter that looks like a 3. And so they will get confused. So you want that bottom part going straight down. Okay. Hey. Top left to top right, and then to bottom right. And then, obviously, we remember hey has this big gap in the middle. So obviously it needs a second stroke. I like to start it directly underneath the top left corner and then go straight down. I like the line and the gap to be about the same size. So basically I start my new stroke at the midpoint. Cursive hey is just going to be a rounded version of this. So we're going to start at the top left corner, and then we're going to make a nice sweeping arch over to the bottom right corner. And don't let it curl under too much. We want it to be kind of standing on that leg, right? It doesn't have to be straight up and down, but we don't want it to be all curled under. And then we get a little miniature version on the inside, right? We start at our halfway point, and then we just a mini arch. And a lot of times that second arch, it turns out more like a line, and that is perfectly fine. As long as what's really important is that that little miniature arch / line does not go beyond the bottom line. If it goes further down, it's gonna look like a curve. So you want to make sure that bottom line is really small and does not end up any lower than the big arch. All right, now we're ready for Vav. Vav, remember, Vav is a really narrow letter. So it's going to have a really, really small horizontal line at the top. And then, boom, straight line down all the way to the bottom. But no further, right? You don't want to go any further than the bottom line, because then that will be a nun sofit. And you don't want this line at the top, this little horizontal line. If you make that one too long, it's going to make your letter look like a resh. And you don't want that either. So you want it to be super small, super short. And then your cursive Vav is just literally a straight line. Top to bottom. Top line to bottom line. Zayin. This is the only way I know how to make a zayin. I don't know if there are other ways, but this is pretty much the only way I've ever seen. You start kind of towards the left, maybe. I mean, it's another narrow letter. And you start on the top line and you draw a diagonal line down into the right. That's going to be a pretty short diagonal line. And then from the middle of it, you want to draw a straight vertical line down. And then remember what I said about cursive zayin. It is a mirror image of cursive gimel. So you're going to start at the top line, kind of in the middle. And now instead of drawing a line down into the right, you're going to draw a line down into the left. Just a little bit. And now you're going to draw a clockwise arch that goes all the way around and kind of looks like a backwards C. Okay, there's your zayin. Chet. Chet starts at the top left, and we make our little stroke to the top right and then to the bottom right. And then we pick up our pen, we put it back on that top left corner and a straight line down. Remember, it kind of looks like one of the structures from Stonehenge, or a little bit like the letter pi. And everything is straight, either horizontal or vertical. And the most important thing is that this second stroke cannot veer off towards the left at all, because remember, Toph is going to have a foot off to the left. Anything that might resemble a foot to the left is going to detract from the understanding that this is a chet and not a Toph. Okay, and in cursive, it's pretty much a rounded version of it, right? We draw our arch from the top left to the bottom right, and then a straight line down. Back up to that top left corner and a straight line down. We do not want this line, I guess you don't want it bulging outwards, right? Because that would look really weird. And you don't want it bulging inwards because that might suggest that what's at the bottom is a foot, making it look like a Toph. So you want this second line to be straight up and down, vertical. All right, and you can see that when I wrote this, I was very careful to start my second stroke right there in the corner where I had started my first stroke. But that's not really that necessary. You can have a little overhang, right? Or you can have an overhang in the other direction. Really, none of it matters. What matters is that those two strokes touch, because if you've got a gap, what do you have? You have a hey. So you want to make sure they're touching, and you want to make sure that second stroke is really vertical. All right, let's look at tet. So we're going to start the block tet in the middle of the letter space. And we're going to draw a short stroke, a straight stroke to the right, top right corner. Then we're going to draw pretty much a straight stroke down and a little bit to the left until you reach the bottom line. So when you reach that bottom line, you should not be anywhere near the middle of your letter space. You should still be over on the right side, but you don't want that to be a vertical line. Then you're going to draw a short horizontal line across the bottom, and then another diagonal line up and to the left, the top left corner. So look at what this looks like at the end. I mean, it's so hard to describe. All right, and then the cursive tet. So you start near the top right corner, but it really, I guess nobody really starts at the corner. We start a little bit below it. You're going to start by drawing a line down, and then you're going to curve left and then curve up and then come out the top, and your tet is going to, the end of the line is going to be over where you started, but it's also going to be outside of your letter space. It's going to be above the top line. So it kind of, when you're done with it, it kind of looks like a 6, right? You can see it kind of looks like a 6, but except that a 6, of course, curls back over and the two lines kind of touch each other. And you also usually start a 6 from the other side, you would start a 6 from the top. Okay, that's it for tet, and that's it for this video. If you're ready for more, the other videos are already available. You don't have to wait for next week. If you want to start practicing your letters, you can take a photo of your page and put it in the comments, and I will let you know how you're doing. Don't forget that on Thursday, I will post a book review, and then Sunday will be Hebrew Vocab Boost. Or just wait for next week's grammar video, which will be on the Nikud system and other aspects of reading and writing. And as usual, if you have some aspect of Hebrew grammar that has you flummoxed, let me know and I will do my best to explain it in a future video. Hit like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to see more. Lahitraot papa'a mapa'a. See you next time.